Recording in progress.
You have the other mouse. You want to come sit up here?
He's like, I'll hide this meeting.
Can I try?
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Good evening. I'd like to call the September 24th Borough Council Workshop meeting to order. Stand for pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Provenza?
Present.
Mr. Flota?
Here.
Mayor Recupero?
Here.
President Sujovich?
Here.
Ms. Redzak? Dr. Carpenter?
Present.
Miss. Mr. Jamelis?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Any additional emergency agenda items? At this time, we're gonna halt the agenda to swear in our new police officer, William Smith. Sorry, I had it here.
One up here, we're right over here.
Thank you.
Take the picture.
Yeah. This has been a long waited, we've been trying to get more full-time officers in. And he will be taking the test shortly here for the full-time, but Julian's going to start out with us on a part-time basis, but we're going to expedite, the testing like we talked about. That. So, right here. I state your name, resident.
I, Julian Smith, 1454 Sandstone Court West, Renham, PA 15084.
Do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support
We solemnly swear that
or affirm that I will
support,
obey and defend the Constitution of the United States
obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
and that I will discharge my duties
and that I will discharge my duties
of my office with fidelity and honor.
of my office with fidelity and honor.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Good talking to you. By the flag,
See with your daddy?
this is his wife and his two kids. You can introduce them.
It's Katie and Connor.
Oh, that's right. That's why.
I miss my little babies. Thank you.
A new member of our force. It's a start of a new beginning.
Hi, baby. Can you smile?
They're like, no.
All right, good job.
Okay. We can go sit down.
I'm gonna grab something real quick. Where'd he go? Where'd he go?
Another room.
Sorry. We just had to make sure something happened. Apologize. I'm pulling up your project now. Wade, can you hear us? Should have asked.
It's muted.
And Julian and his family are gonna leave, because we have a presentation and. I'm sure the kids will sit through that.
Congratulations.
We look forward.
Congratulations.
Thank
you.
Yeah, you're ready to talk.
Congratulations. Thank you. We'll see you. See you.
Can you, I'm gonna get on Zoom and then I'm gonna need to share the screen.
I already put it on.
Okay, thank you.
I figured that was it.
We ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay, we'll go to registered comments from the public. We have Mr. Jason Daly from Daily Operations Consulting, talk about the stamp program. It's the summary.
Thank you. Everyone has the presentations in front of you. We want to wait for it to run for us to. Can you see that? Or you're using summary. Yes.
You have the full, the operations report, also found and in front of you there, but we'll be focusing tonight really just on the summary, which is the lesser one here.
Let me just, okay. I think I got it.
All right, well, thank you very much. This is, so we are, last meeting that we were together, Debbie Grass, presented on the steps 1 through 3, which was the financial health assessment, right? Of and she provided a list of recommendations that went over, what the, first off, providing you all with the current state of the financing, then also provided you all with some recommendations as to how to remain financially solvent and touched on a few areas to be thinking about. We're going to touch on some of those as we go through this, but tonight's focus tonight is on the operations. So we looked at, this is part of step 4 of your strategic, management grant that you have through DCED. Remember, we have 6 steps that we go through. Tonight will be an overview of what I evaluated along with our police consultant. I'll be presenting on that as well here. Everybody okay? Did you all have a chance to look at some of the information we provided there over the last couple of days there for you?
You should have gotten the executive summary yesterday and then today, the full 74 page.
Yes. So you'll see that this is a little overwhelming, right? There's 80 recommendations in here. This is a lot in here. Now, this is not a reflection that, there's anything that the borough isn't doing. These recommendations are provided in here as a way for you to also be able to utilize these to go after grant funds that you will be, exposed to once this program is over. Hopefully, we'll be wrapping this up next month by completing steps 5 and 6 when we come back to help you prioritize all of these. So that'll be the goal of next month, will be for us to, for me to come back and for you all to take some time over the next month to digest this. And then we'll come back and sit and go over and help you prioritize all of these recommendations, but then also come up with an implementation strategy. Because this is a lot to take in. You have several years, 5, up to 5 years to complete what's all in this report. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to do any of it. But the state promotes this program. You are going to be exposed to a special pot of money as a result of your involvement and participation in this program. It's called the STAMP grant, and you'll be exposed to money that is designated just for this program in the items that we call out in here. So I wanted to start by going over the administrative items in here. So you can see that there were 7 items that were recommended throughout the first part of this.
And again, the report that you have that is the supplement to this provides the supporting documentation as to why these recommendations were listed. These are based off of the observations that we went through with your staff, talking with you all, and our general observations that how we came up with these. And what I did on, we have 7 items on here, but if you turn on to the next page, I summarized, really the top 3 off of those 7 recommendations. You have a small staff here, and the managers in the part-time secretary that you have there, they're expected to do a lot. You all are a very doing council. You're active, you are, very involved in your community. But the work of the office here falls onto the shoulders of the manager and their staff. And so, oftentimes with managers, exposure to training in a small office environment like this becomes challenging. They have to be in the office to do the work, but it really is a priority for them to be exposed to professional organizations, professional training that's out there that is really geared to help them in their jobs and to educate them. You'd be surprised how much that training does benefit you both, avoiding lawsuits, avoiding legal bills, that you might incur, because your manager then becomes that much more educated on what's happening in the field and in the profession. There's actually an international managers conference that's going on here in Pittsburgh right now. It's called the ICMA International City Manager Association. They rotate around different cities around the world. That's actually being hosted in Pittsburgh right now, this week. So the items that I talk about here as far as the governance goes, investing in your borough manager, really promoting their involvement in these professional associations, exposing them to those various agencies that can really help to them in their job. Another item that's on here, item number 2, is identifying an HR professional, an HR consultant that can help, with the various, items that come before the manager. Sometimes we always say, these jobs would be so much better, or so much easier if it wasn't for the people sometimes. Well, HR issues can become very involved, right? They can take us down, rabbit holes and take up a lot of time in our days that might prevent us from doing work that you might expect your borough manager to be doing. Why isn't this grant being done? Why isn't this, this contract being evaluated or something like that? Well, these personnel matters can take up a lot of time of your borough manager. So the recommendation there is to consider possibly, contracting with an HR consultant. There are services that do this. There are individuals that can do this for, can assist the borough in working through some of these. And they keep up on personnel related laws and are able to really help your manager and be an extension of the manager's office. And they help to resolve some of those issues very, very quickly. Workers' comp issues, medical leave issues, things like that I know in a small organization can really, slow things and slow the progress down as you're moving. The one item that, maybe you want to hear this, maybe you don't, but is, it's oftentimes very difficult to find folks that want to get involved in councils these days. And one of the items that I recommended on here, the legislature just recently passed a law that allows boroughs of your size, under 3,000, to consider reducing their size. From 7 to 5 to even 3 is an option, not recommended, but you are permitted to consider reducing the size of council and to possibly make your government that much more efficient, but also it's easier to find folks to participate in your local government sometimes whenever councils are smaller. Sometimes this is easier to do whenever folks are not interested in running again, or not interested in pursuing a new term or something like that. So something to consider. The other item that I don't have on here, but it's in your report there, as one of the recommendations, is the super committee structure. I know that you all serve on committees that are set up by council, and that you participate in those committees. The super committee structure essentially is governing as a body, and perhaps during a workshop meeting, you all would be, you would do the work of what your committees are doing outside in the room. Usually those committee meetings are not voting meetings, just like your workshops are not voting meetings. But you would be able to really talk freely amongst yourselves and help to work through some of those issues. It does not prevent individual council members from going out and talking to contractors, members of the public, or anything like that. But it helps to reduce the amount of meetings and things like that that you all may have in addition to what you do now. Because I know that's another challenging thing for small councils to do, is to have as many meetings as you do. So that is one of those items that's in there. I did provide additional support in there for you to consider as you read through the report. There are 2 pages. Now these recommendations, Debbie went over these last, during her steps 1 through 3 presentation. Are in there for the financial recommendations. I did talk to Debbie before this. We did want to just recap and emphasize maybe 1 or 2 of those recommendations again that you were presented with at that time. So Debbie.
Right, yeah, I don't wanna go through everything we all saw what we presented the first time. But there were a couple that I wanted to emphasize that I think are pretty important. First of all, we talked about doing some possible new fees under Act 511. And if you intend to do that, we can help you with that. You do have to start the process pretty early because you have the special advertising with that ordinance. You have to advertise 3 times and you have to do it in advance of December 1st. So if you were considering any of those things that we looked at, I think it was the flat business privilege tax for businesses. There was a couple other ones, and I'm not recalling them right now. But if you want to do anything, increasing the mechanical device fee, I think the amusement fee, if you want to do any of those, just a reminder that you have to start pretty soon.
If we increase, just out of curiosity, because that's one of the things I'm looking at, the mechanical device fees, that has to be 3 times?
If it is adopted, you'd have to look at your codification, but if it was adopted under Act 511 and the fee is actually in the ordinance, yes, the amendment to the ordinance had special advertising.
I will check on that.
Yeah, so I wanted to remind you if you're interested in that as well. Couple, the other thing that we did talk about at the last meeting, again, is to keep an eye on pensions. Because if you recall, I had a chart and they had doubled, I think in the last decade, they had gone from 31,000 to about 80,000. And more of it is not being supported by state aid. And I always tell boards this, it's like the hidden thing that bites you in the end, because nobody pays attention to it. If you don't watch your investment management, if you don't watch your assumptions, if you don't meet with your actuarials, all of a sudden, and that's what's happening to a lot of the cities, we hear cities all the time, got a huge liability that they never expected to have. That's what happens, the liabilities kind of add up and nobody's watching them. So you have to be really vigilant about giving away any new benefits. Making sure that you're getting the investments that you need, the investment returns, that your assumptions that you're using reflect the investment that you're getting, because sometimes, you have an assumption that says, oh, we're gonna get 8% a year, and you're only getting 5% a year, and all of a sudden that creates that liability. So pensions, that's something that I just want to have on everyone's radar. Few of these others, Jason's gonna cover the stormwater management piece, he's gonna talk about rental inspections, so those are all ways to raise additional revenue. The other thing that, and again, this is a thing that is very fundable under a phase 2, is to put together some written procedures around fiscal procedures. And I think it's really important, especially in times of transition, to have a written fiscal procedure for how do you pay the bills, how do you do the budget, how do you do your purchasing, how do you do your capital planning. So I would think that might rise to the top, and like Jason said, there's 80 recommendations. So it's hard to think about right this minute what will rise to the top. But to me, being a fiscal person, I would think that's a really important thing to consider. And then finally, the capital improvement plan, which I know Jason will talk about in a minute, but. People say to me, we don't have any money, so we don't do capital planning. Well. You're never gonna have money if you don't do capital planning. Because you really need to know what you're gonna be spending on infrastructure and sewers and facilities and parks and technology and equipment and vehicles. And you need to know that, but we recommend 5 years in advance. That way you can plan for it. Someone's not coming in and saying, oh, you know, that road collapsed or that vehicle, we need all of a sudden we need snow plows and it's gonna snow next week. Or we need a truck. So you wanna have those things scheduled, have a replacement plan, and actually do that in writing, updated every year, so that you know exactly what you're going to do. So those are the things I wanted to emphasize, but happy to answer any questions.
Moving along with public works, and you can see there's, you know, probably a good 20 plus recommendations on public works. Really gonna only emphasize a few on here. So, you know, again, just like with anything, investing in staff for training and you know, and really how they perform their jobs. You know, a couple of recommendations in here centered around this. You know, you maintain a sewer collection system, and you know, we don't always think that there's a lot of, you know, what do you need to know, right? It literally flows downhill. Well, there's a lot of things that can happen with a sanitary collection system, including, workers being overtaken by the lack of oxygen in a manhole, and things like that. So, you know, I called out some things that kind of complement this, like having an air monitor whenever the employees go down into the manholes, or even whenever they're repairing stormwater catch basins, which, you know, when I was talking with AJ, that's common work for them. You know, they do this type of work routinely, but we want to understand what the safety precautions are for that, whenever they're performing that kind of work. So having training for both AJ and the other laborers, you know, is very important. There was actually just PA1 call safety training this past week down in Cannonsburg. It drew hundreds of public works employees down to that, where they, you know, learned about locating lines and, you know, the proper way to report whenever they hit another utility, and, you know, trench safety and things like that, that those guys experience every day in the type of work that they do. So again, I can't underestimate investing in staff. You really get a return on that tenfold. And I provided in a report very specific training that I would suggest for AJ and for labor, and some of the skill sets. You have a very skilled labor force. These guys are extremely talented, and you get a lot of work out of a very small crew. And but training is something to really think about there. Additionally, whenever I was talking with AJ about, you know, there's only so much that 3 guys can do. And yes, you are a small community, but there is a lot of work that, you know, could be getting done and should be getting done. Some of those things, I'm not going to say that they're menial labor, but it's labor that you don't want to have your skilled workforce perform. You know, curb painting lines, crosswalks, things like that. You know, where, you know, there could be stormwater basin rebuilding going on, or manhole construction taking place. That would be the type of work that you would want your skilled labor to be performing, while your seasonal and part-time labor is doing that type of thing. I understand that there's some discussion going on right now about park maintenance and about the type of maintenance that you might be performing. That's a whole nother animal whenever you start to think about the use of part-time and seasonal labor, that this would be an even more important discussion for you all to be considering when you start going down that line. One of the big ones that always catches public works and councils, off guard a little bit, is long-term planning. Whenever I first came in here and met with Stephanie to go over what this process was going to look at, right on that table right there, you had had an evaluation done by a company called Robotics. And they came in and they did an evaluation on your road system, and they provided you all with, an evaluation where they rode the roads, and they gave you a condition assessment on your roadways. Well, that information is good, but it now needs to be converted into a pavement management plan that says, you only have, is 8.43 miles?
8.3.
8.3 miles of roadway. And a typical roadway is going to be 12 to 15 year life. And so you start to think about, okay, if we have to construct, every 12 to 15 years, how do we back into that? As far as, our funding, what we get from liquid fuels, or if we have to use our local tax base in order to pay for that. But that has to be converted into a priority list for you, so that you know how much should you be spending and how much can you be spending. So you did the hard part about having the evaluation, but now it needs to be converted into a long-term plan. The other thing that I emphasize in the report, in the full report, is that, we always think about tar and chip, or we think about mill and fill paving. There are so many other treatment options available to us now in this industry that are low cost, but have a very high return on our investment. Mill and fill or tar and chip is one of the cheapest ways, but it's also one of the ones that, if you all don't want to be elected real quick, tar and chip every road, right? It's dirty, it's messy, it's loose stone.
I didn't understand it.
But it is still one of the most effective ways, that the state does it all the time, right? Because it's a very cost-effective way to seal coat a road. But there are now new treatments that involve you not having that loose stone, where the stone and the oil are mixed together, and you burlap sack, drag the roadway behind the treatment as it's going down. There's no dust. And it cures within a half an hour. You can get traffic right on it. It doesn't need to be swept back up. So whereas, tar and chip goes for about $2.40 a square yard, this goes for maybe about $4 a square yard. It's a little bit more expensive because of the type of application that goes down. But that's the type of stuff that, when AJ or your manager are going to training, they're going to be exposed to these types of new technologies that are out there that we just, you don't know about it if you're just inside the four walls. So again, those types of treatments are really good and inexpensive. The last item that I have on here for Public Works is that because of the fact that you offer a sanitary sewer utility, there is a newer insurance line program that exists. It's being promoted by the National League of Cities, and the Pennsylvania Municipal League. It's called the Home Serve Utility Line Insurance Program. And you as a municipality are able to offer this program. You don't pay for this program. Individuals sign up for it. If any of you have ever gotten your, you guys have Duquesne Light here, right? So if you ever gotten this in the mail from like Duquesne Light, or sometimes your gas company offers this same type of service, municipalities are now able to offer this exact same type of thing. Very low cost. It covers everything from the main up to the house. They are even now starting to offer inside the home programs that, if you have old terracotta lines, that run in your basements of your homes, or if you have sump pumps and things like that, grinder pumps, they'll cover those types of things too. Very low cost, $4 to $6 a month, and it can be tacked on. It can be tacked on to bills or individually paid for by the homeowners. So the municipality does get a stipend from a program like this that you can reinvest into the system, into your sanitary system. So these are great programs that exist out there, and I do definitely recommend you looking into things like that. We do have the stormwater fee that's listed on here. Again, I didn't highlight this one, but I do want to touch on it a little bit, mainly because we've emphasized this as a possible other source of revenue for the borough, and something to consider. This does involve you having to have an engineer study that's performed on your stormwater system. You have an aged stormwater system, just like a lot of older communities do, like a lot of older river communities do, especially. You're downstream, you're right at the mouth of the river for a lot of your upstream neighbors. So unfortunately, you have in 3 different impairments, according to the DEP. I called that out in the report. Indian Creek, the Allegheny River, and there was another stream that you have that runs.
Plum Creek.
Yeah. All 3 of your waterways that you either have running through or that you feed into are considered impaired waterways. And the DEP, you're an MS4 community. You have regulations where you have to take sediment out of these areas. You have to work on your stormwater quality and not just manage the quantity of the water now. So having a stormwater fee where you can look to consider recouping some of the money that you have to put into that system because you are DEP mandated to do that. is something that the borough may want to consider. You know, again, you have to back into that fee by showing, you know, capital improvements, but also how you manage your stormwater. When you think about your roadway, you know, one of the things we talk about in here is where do you come up with more money to pave roads and things like that. Some communities are using their stormwater fee to help pay for their paving, because you figure the piece of the roadway, you have your curb, you have your stormwater basins, your pipe system that runs the water away from the roadways. That's all part of it. In addition to helping to retain water and to make sure that the water becomes a very high quality before it goes into those receiving streams. So the stormwater fee is one more thing for you to think about as you go through and look at those recommendations that are in there.
Just one comment about that. So boroughs right now are not legally able to do it just as a borough service. You guys probably know that or heard about the case studies. It's actually in the courts right now. The courts determined that it's a tax, not a fee. But authorities are permitted to levy it because authorities that cannot tax, they only can do fees. And second class townships are allowed to do it. So one of the things that I think a lot of communities are looking at and lobbying for is for not just second class townships, everybody should be able to do it. In fact, boroughs have way more issues around stormwater, and cities are not allowed to do it right now either. So, you know, if you belong to, and I'm assuming you do, an association, the Boroughs Association or PML or whatever, there needs to be a really strong push to allow boroughs to do it. Now, I'm in Dormont Borough, and I think I might have mentioned this before. What they decided to do was create an authority. So they have an authority kind of on paper, and we actually provide the services. They contract with my company just to run the stormwater. But the thing about it, Jason's absolutely right. We've been doing this since 2015. You can use those fees for a lot of things like street sweep, that's protects the storm. You can do catch basins. You can replace lines and do the paving that's associated with those lines. We've installed 3 rain gardens in parking lots. You know, we do a lot of education and give away rain barrels to residents, which is a really good PR thing. This fall, we're planting trees in people's yards. So to say, well, we can't do it at the end of it, you might want to think about a creative way to do it just so that you can accomplish all those various projects. It's really important in a community like this that has those kinds of stormwater issues.
And you know, that fee is usually relatively low per month. So, you know, and as that indicates, you know, having some of those incentives and some of those, you know, we'll say giveaway type things, people can really see, you know, the work getting done. And you do have stormwater issues here. I mean, AJ took me to several locations, known flooding areas. There's an area, a roadway, I forget the name of it, but it was right above one of the main businesses, and where it all comes down from Penn Hills. It was, yes, yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, there was so much debris in there. There's no more capacity for stormwater in that particular little stream right there, so.
And we've leveraged our fees at the Dormont Authority. We've leveraged ours for $1.2 million in additional grant money. Which is a lot of grant money at the state level for this type of work. But you've got to have, you know, usually a local match, not a huge one, but usually you have to have some type of local match. And you have to pay for the engineering to design the project, which is always an issue because the state doesn't pay for that.
They're actually working on something that deals with that with Plum, Penn Hills, Verona and Oakmont, because Verona and Oakmont are at the bottom of what happens at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, and Butler County, Jerry, you mentioned Jerry Andre, they have a group of 4 municipalities that decided to go together and create an authority. Because again, 3 of them are boroughs and they don't have the legal authority to do it. But if they create an authority, a regional one, then they do have the ability to levy those fees. Like Jason said, I think they're starting out at $4 or $5 a month Ours is $8 a month and we have no open space in Dormont. It's completely filled out, so we have significant, flooding and stormwater issues.
So are you saying like Oakmont Water Authority?
The authority can bill it for you.
But you can't just go to Oakmont Water Authority and say, we want to levy a storm. We can't.
Well,
do
you
that.
have to do it by ordinance, but I'll tell you, and this is where you might want to talk to Jerry. What the authority that they're forming is doing is they're gonna collect the fees and they're actually gonna give them back to the municipalities to do their own projects. So
We have.
there's a lot of ways,
There's
there's
a-
kind of,
Yeah, and that is something that's being worked on right now because of the Plum watershed. It's just figuring out the
How to do
creative way of what that's gonna look like, but just going to Oakmont Water and asking that is not that's not creative, that's levying a tax. We won't.
Could be challenged, sure.
Yeah, we would be challenged on that. That's why we're working, that's why there's 4 communities working on it right now.
and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and we are, we're working on it right now.
So instead of a water authority, it'd be a stormwater.
A stormwater authority, yes, under the Municipalities Authorities Act, they actually added stormwater as a utility, because that act allowed for sewer and water and electric and other utilities. And about 10 years ago, they actually added stormwater as a utility. But and then they went ahead and did it for second-class townships. Because quite honestly, they have the biggest lobby in the state, second-class townships. We all know how the biggest lobby. But it never got done for boroughs or cities, which have the most stormwater issues, so go figure.
When you think about that, I know we're talking about adding a fee, but there's also something to think about is how much money you spend out of your general fund right now towards that activity, towards the stormwater activity, towards your paving budget, things like that. So this kind of creates a new revenue source and frees up additional general fund monies that you can do other things with, which things like parks, which will be the next thing we talk about.
One more thing, I'm sorry to prolong this, but one of the things, like Jason said, that if you're interested in this issue at all, first thing you have to do is an engineering study to identify your projects. Basically, what that does is because these are your projects, this is, over the next 5 years, this is what you can do. That helps to determine what the fee is. And the point I wanted to make is the phase 2 stamp will pay for that study if it's a priority.
And right now, that's the study that's currently being completed through, again, Verona, Oakmont, Plum, and County Hills. They're doing a stormwater study and the watershed.
All right, I'm talking, moving on a little bit to the parks aspect of the, item. There was a few items in here, but I know you're kind of going through, some transitioning with your parks right now, with your associations, and your parks are heavily used. Riverbank Park, was, when I was over there with AJ, not only were there 2 families, with multiple children, in the play area, but there was also, there wasn't an open pickleball court. And there was people waiting, like, as a group to utilize that facility while we were there. This was during the week. This was a weekday morning, during the summer months. So your parks are heavily used. Cribbs Field, at the time whenever I was up there, there was some, transition, I think, going on as to who was going to be maintaining infields, how the mowing was going to be taking place, what the maintenance practice looked like. But the facility itself, in general, very well kept, very well put together. It was you could tell that it was a very heavily used facility. One of the things that as you start to provide better facilities, though, is that the sports associations will start to have more interest in wanting to use them. You'll start getting more interest in outside organizations that will want to, obviously, they're being drawn to nice facilities. So I know that your fees were relatively low, and whenever we first looked at this, and the thought was that start forming that relationship and have some interaction and dialogue with your sports associations about what are those improvements they want to make to those facilities. half of the facility at Cribs is lit, is there an interest in lighting more of that facility? Is there interest in doing other things up there? But just, the sky's really the limit up there at that facility. It really is nice. And talking about the fees that could be associated with that, you have a relatively low fee at $50 per season. Most, facilities fees in municipalities that offer facilities like that are much higher than that for, it's usually a per game use fee or something along those lines. But there's also discussions that go on about what is the borough gonna provide? What is the association gonna provide as far as the the give and take there on the use of the facility? You have newer playground equipment up at Cribs, a little bit older playground equipment at Riverbank Park. I think there's
grant dollars coming in,
Things underway
to
there.
replace all of that, including the basketball courts, new playground equipment at both parks. So that's like $120,000. We just approved all of that just a few weeks ago.
So older and newer playground equipment both, require inspections. And the consumer playground, it's not playground, Consumer Product Safety Commission. They actually, have a playground inspection program that's managed locally by the Pennsylvania Recreation Association. It's like a 3-day class that they put public works and parks and rec related employees through that go through and how to inspect playground equipment, how to understand how deep mulch has to be whenever you have play structures and swings and things like that. Again, this would be something that AJ possibly designate someone else within Public Works that may possibly be able to participate in that. One of the items that I saw, there's a picture even of the hillside at Cribs that was showing some level of erosion. But trying to reduce labor intensive things like that whenever the crew or whoever you're going to be contracting with that may be mowing those facilities, things that you can do to reduce their time while they're there, it's going to help reduce costs and the amount of effort it's going to take to do that. Some of the things that I noticed at Riverbank Park was, direct buried benches in the grass. Well, if there's a pad poured for a bench, you just mow right along the pad, right? When it's direct buried like that, you have to weed eat around that kind of stuff. And it takes a lot more time. If we don't want to be weed eating all week, then those are the types of things. Yes, it costs a little bit to put a pad in, but if someone can just run a mower, it's that much quicker for them to be maintaining those types of facilities. I gave some other examples in the full report of what that might look like for you all, but those, I always think of it from the labor perspective as to how much time they're spending doing that type of work. The last item on there for parks is really to overemphasize is it's not only adding more cameras and security to the parks, but when we talk about technology, I mentioned about looking at electronic locks for your facilities, including for this building, the Public Works facility, your building on Arch Street, up at the restrooms up at Cribs. At those different facilities, if you have electronic locks and you get away from the hard keys, that solves a lot of problems. And if folks leave, or if you have to grant access for an event or something like that, that can all be done with a couple keystrokes rather than having to worry about handing out keys and getting them back. And so electronic locks have they play a big role in that, but also so do the cameras and the security features at the parks. Cameras are never where you want them to be. Whenever there's an issue that takes place, the more that you can put in the higher quality the cameras that you can invest in is the more likely. Unfortunately, it's usually reactive, but folks see the cameras. Sometimes it does act as a deterrent. We'll talk about codes. There was a couple items under code and code enforcement. You do have active code enforcement. Well, I'm going to say you have reactive code enforcement here right now. Code enforcement plays such a big role in small communities. Your housing stock relies very heavily on the fact that you have active code enforcement out there. And even more importantly is that when you have updated code adoption, your last codes were adopted in 2019, which isn't too bad, to tell you the truth. You may not have had a whole lot of ordinances or resolutions that might have changed this, but it's likely that you probably did. And updating the codes is something that should be on a routine adoption schedule. Updating to the latest property maintenance code, I think that you were on 2015's code.
2018.
2018. There's one that has come out, up through 2023. The reason why you want to keep up on the latest versions is because building trends and property maintenance trends change. You're starting to see tiny houses, you're starting to see solar additions, to roofs and things like that. Those types of code and property maintenance issues are going to be, kept up on in the latest property maintenance codes, which is why you want to try to make sure that you're keeping up with the latest one. I've seen some communities that say in their code that, that the borough always adopts the latest version. I think that's been challenged recently, so you do have to, actually call out the year that you're adopting and that you're going to be utilizing. There was an item in there that I called out about the a quality of life ticketing. This is something that, if anyone's heard of the Blight to Bright series, that was out there where they start talking about low-level things that you can do to try to mitigate and to get in front of blight issues. Allowing your code enforcement officer to issue what they're calling quality of life ticketing, rather than getting these directly to the magistrate. These are locally issued tickets. They're usually lower in value, $15 to $20, up to $25, for like high grass issues, repeat offenders like that. They're finding that this is a good way to try to, increase adherence to the code. I was under the impression you guys were going through your comprehensive plan right now, or working through, working to get some funding for that, for that particular process. Once you are, if you haven't started that, or as this gets underway, I definitely encourage you to work through to finish and to, to get that plan adopted. That's going to really serve as the guiding force for the borough for the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years. There's so much that has changed in the borough. The business community's changed. The types of residents that are moving in, that's constantly changing. This will really help to guide what the next steps are for the borough, and really help council to focus its efforts as well. Once that's done, you really want to quickly after that comprehensive plan is adopted is update your zoning ordinance. Zoning changes were written in a way that they didn't keep up with the current types of trends that are out there. This corridor right here has a lot of trendy businesses on it. Your main street is starting to see different types of businesses that people are drawn to urban type centers. Your zoning ordinance, once it's updated, it will look at what else can you be attracting, what other types of businesses can you work with, and what may be being prevented from looking at your community is a place to relocate because of the restrictions that you have in your zoning.
Yeah, and one of the more creative things that's going on with zoning, and some people love it, some people hate it, but in small urban communities, they're actually relaxing parking regulations.
Yeah.
Because they found that these very restrictive parking regulations are really a disincentive to businesses and developers. And they found that if you don't have really restrictive parking, they tend to put in the parking that they need anyway, somehow. And that communities are allowing them to use more of the public parking. So that is one of the newer trends, is just, that's why you want to look at your zoning ordinance and say, we want zoning, but we want zoning that makes sense for us, not for somebody else, where they can put in, 100 space parking lot. We don't have that here. We might want to look at something different.
I know that you all just wanted me to brush over the police and hurry up and want me to wrap this part up, so we'll spend 1 second on this. No, just so I know that you this has been an ongoing subject for you all on what you're going to do with your police department. You've had the state come in and perform an evaluation where they look at several of your neighbors while they reviewed the internal workings of the department. Some of the challenges has been the leadership, right? You're going through some challenges there right now on what that looks like for you for the future, and how do you transition, what that's going to look like next. And then that leads to the discussion of, how many full-time and, officers do we have, how many part-time? So what we thought was, a way to approach this, and you'll see this in our full report. And this complements the DCED report as well. So these should be really read together for this particular section. But, we looked at, okay, what are some of your options to look at if you were to look at contracting or regionalizing your police department? It's certainly a trend of, smaller departments that, when you look at your budget on this slide here, your police department costs you around $600,000 a year and growing. Right? So, the more full-time officers you have, that's a growing trend. I mean, it's just the cost of doing business when you have a police department. There's certain things you have to provide, for that operation. We provided some comparables here on this slide, with similar sized communities to Verona and within the county. And you can see, the demographics are all over the place for some of these, like, Aspinwall out, near the hospital, they have a different, demographic than you might be, you may have here, in Pitcairn. But we're looking at the population, right? Because this is the tax base that you're going to really be pulling from, which is very similar to those communities there. You can see, a community like, when we're looking at Edgewood, they have 11 full-time officers. Their police budget is $1.4 million, right? They have a different, type of service that they provide. They're a very, heavy commercial area over there. They're also right up against, some, Swissville and some of those other areas. But this just kind of gives you what the trending expenses are for some of the regional other communities that are within the county. As far as the when we're talking about with regionalization, the study looked at what does it look like to to possibly partner and to discuss this option with your neighbors, which that's really where this starts at. I know that getting an idea and getting 7 folks and a mayor on board with an idea like this is very challenging. It's tough to talk about this and for you all to be agree on a direction for this, but this really has to start with a smaller group that will investigate what some of these options look like. I've talked with many of you on council. I've talked with staff. I've talked to several officers, on your department. Every one of you has a different thought as to where you should go with this, who your possible partners are. And I don't think any of you are wrong in how you're approaching this, but for you to come to some consensus, this really is going to need to start with a smaller group to evaluate all of the options that you're presented with in both the DCD report and in this report here. I mean, O'Hara Township, O'Hara's in the process right now of looking at their own merger with Wanox across the river. I know that there's discussion that says, well, that's across the river. We can't do that. I've talked with some of you that said, but we would consider Harmer Township. But Penn Hills, is that an option? Some of you have talked about that as an option. I think that all of those need to be thoroughly vetted, but again, with a smaller committee, with yourselves. There needs to be some exploration that goes on, both internally to the borough to say, who is it that makes sense? Because there's pros and cons of every one of these that's on here. Every recommendation that you're presented with in both the state report and in this report here, there are some challenges with all of them, including whether they even want to partner with you, right? Whether they even want to be considered, to be a contracting partner with you. I think that that's the first step, though, in as far as what the recommendation would be, is that we provided you with what some options might be based off of what's currently happening, like the O'Hara Wanox arrangement. But we also suggested maybe some brand new ideas about a regional Allegheny River, regional police department. There's always a discussion about this, Etna, Millville, Sharpsburg, there's always a discussion about that in the southern part of the river communities here. There's just to the north of you, there's, some regionalizing going on up there with Eastier, Toronto.
Eastier, Springdale Township,
Cheswick. Cheswick and Springdale Township, I think, they have their own thing going.
and so does Eastier.
Okay, they joined. Yeah. So
So they
there's,
don't have Springdale.
yeah, so there's, there's discussions going on with that, and, again, I think that's the first part of this, is to determine, is regionalization or a contracted service within the police department something that you really want to consider? Because once we get over that discussion, then, if it's no, we're not going to go that direction. Then we talk about, okay, what does this department look like, and what are some of the recommendations that we need to do? Because if regionalization or contract is off the table, we want, the goal should be to have your police department be the best that it can be.
And that's
Right.
currently where we stand as a council and as a police force, is that we stand that we want to do Verona.
Invest internally.
If we could instead of, we had a press release that we
That's
are
what,
not interested in regionalization.
Okay, so,
I just don't want people watching this to be confused and.
yeah, right. So the next part then, which is good, is what does it look like without regionalization? And, some of the items that we have on here, and I, again, one of the things, with or without regionalization, one of the things that I did recommend was that, the concept of having additional legal counsel assist you with special matters is something that you should consider. And, personnel matters, I don't care if it's with Public Works, if it's in the office, if it's in the police department. Personnel matters are very difficult to work through, and especially when they get into a legal, framework. So when you're dealing with, workers' comp, or when you're dealing with specialty leaves or things like that, I always suggest that, you as an employer think about bringing on special, counsel. Your solicitor would oftentimes work hand in hand with that counsel, but it is something that would help you to advance, an issue, or to help you work through it if there's questions by counsel as to, how you might, work through a particular situation. So just something that I put in there because I think that it's, very important. Some of the other items on here, and I'll just call out really the highlights, which we talked about, was about, talking about standardizing, I talked about standardizing throughout the report, firearm standardization, so that, the ammunition can be one of those areas that you could potentially save on, and that would be, that was actually brought up by the officers, as far as what that looks like, putting together a firearms replacement program. Currently, the officers bring their own weapons, and so, they may have to purchase different types of ammunition as a result of that. Emphasize training. You do have a policy and procedures manual, but, like any small department, the training and orientation throughout that, as part of that manual, it's always challenging, right? As soon as the guys come on, they're expected to be working, and after some initial training and things like that, on the street. But really working through a formal training program with those officers is something that should be looked at. We mentioned about, some items in here about upgrading some procedures, enforcing some of those procedures, like with evidence room and body worn cameras, upgrading some of that technology that's utilized by the officers. A program like this can certainly help that. I'm just gonna touch on two other ones that are on here. We mentioned about a social worker. You're starting to see the use of social workers in police departments. They're also being used to help complement code enforcement activity. We find that whenever folks are, having code related issues, property maintenance like hoarding, and sometimes just general property maintenance, that there's oftentimes something else going on with that. Social workers can help with that, in addition to help de-escalate some situations that officers get in. I know some communities are sharing social workers, to make it more affordable. Others are bringing them on as full-time employees as well. But I did notice that the recent Pennsylvania Crime and Delinquency Program grant is offering some help with bringing these type of employees into the department. So that could be a possible avenue as well for you. The last item that I'll kind of touch on here is the report software. You're currently using the visual software that's no longer going to be supported. They kind of pulled the rug out from everybody maybe about a year or two ago, saying that they were going out of business in October. You know, everybody was kind of scrambling to you know, what are they going to do for the report software? They brought it back for another year to a year and a half, but it's going away. What's nice about a program like this is that this could potentially be one of those ones that's fundable through this program, through the state program is upgrading that software. Several of the officers we talked with, were familiar with the Cody software. There's another one that the county's using. I think Patrolman Bessel actually mentioned that the, RM something software that you had mentioned before. Informant, yeah. That is promoted through Allegheny County. But there's a lot of options for you to consider with that. But the nice thing is that, you know, even though this was being sunset, a sunset piece of software, there is some other ones out there that some regional and some of your neighbors are using in this area here. Okay, so I did touch on a few items on here with regard to IT. You guys just recently upgraded a lot of the PCs and things in the office, but any of the PCs, whether it's at AJ's office at Public Works, in the patrol area there for the police, all of those should be upgraded, you know, to whenever they become out of warranty. You know, Windows 11, I think, or Windows 10 is going to be going away, I think, in August of next year, I think. You might know that. I think it's next year, but it'll no longer be supported in Windows. So those are the types of things you want to stay in front of with the IT. I mentioned about this room. You guys have some of the nicer technology that I've seen in some council chambers, but there's always some opportunity to make it, you know, better even for the public to be able to see these things, how they get recorded, you know, how you all can see monitors and things like that. I mentioned about, you know, there's certainly an opportunity to upgrade your AV and technical hardware here for this you know, council chambers here to make it even more usable. And again, overemphasizing the electronic access for facilities is also included in the technology section. So 81 recommendations, record time presentation. I'm just kidding. But
You did it in 30 minutes on Tuesday.
great.
An hour.
Yes. So I didn't want to rush too much through this, but you know, it's kind of a cursory review of everything that's in the report and some of the highlights from what we called out there. I know you all haven't had a chance to really dive into the details of the full report, but are there any questions before you know, around the presentation?
Jason, just so I can get a timeline on where we're at, when would you guys plan on coming back? The
Next month.
October 20, that would be October 22nd?
Yep.
Okay. I just need
Sure.
my,
And at that time, you know, that would be the time whenever we would, you know, go over and possibly even in advance. I mean, we want you to start thinking about, you know, what is a priority for you and what is a priority for council on this, because we want to help you kind of drill down into, you know, what this looks like for you so that you can put together an implementation strategy, which is ultimately to get some, you know, grant applications in for the recommendations that are provided in the report. So
And you will want to include DCED,
definitely.
George Newsom would be here,
okay,
because he could tell you sort of what next steps, and
perfect.
once it's wrapped up, then he'll be looking for me to, you know, move forward with the implementation.
So
And I-
once
oh,
we-
go ahead.
I'm sorry, so once we put together a plan and go forward with all of this. And then, you know, as we go forward with the different steps and we achieve funding through various grants. Do we get audited throughout the process as, you know? Does the state come in and like
It's the
conduct
same.
audits as, you know, to make sure that we're applying with our, you know, what we said, like, let's say we made a promise that we said we're gonna do this and this and this. Does the state come in and do audits?
So what they're
How does that work?
Yeah, so what they're interested in there is is when you put your grant applications in, is that, you won't be able to put in. A second application until the first one's completed. And they will be looking for it to be completed, so, when you're thinking about prioritizing these, you might not wanna put in there, to update your zoning ordinance as the first one, because that's gonna take a really long time to get done, right? So things that you might wanna think about are like the technology ones, right? Like, it's really easy to get a quote for cameras and to get your doors, upgraded to electronic access relatively quickly, right? You could get a quote for that, you could have a contractor come in and do that and get paid, right, to move that one along. Things that are a little tougher to do is like an engineering study for the stormwater fee, that could be done in about a 2-month or 3-month window, depending on what type of projects that you have, but that's another one that might take a little bit of time, and maybe that's one you wanna keep for a little later phase.
And just so you know, John, we're required by the state, no matter what grant we get, to show them where we're at, what we've done, how we've spent the money.
Sure.
So that's nothing new to any of us. We're prepared for that. I mean, when we start looking at this stuff, I think that we're gonna have to remember as a small staff, we have 5 years. So please look at it as 5 years. You can't look at this as, we want 4 things done in year 1. Because we're not gonna have the capabilities to
Right.
do that. We have a small police force, we just have a small DPW. There's nothing that upgrading the cameras and looking at a map grant to do the comprehensive plan in year 1. And then keep going each year. Stormwater might come in year 2, each thing is gonna come, as we go forward.
Sure.
Yeah, from the date that you accept this, let's just say, when we come back next month, you decide to accept it, and they do like you to formally accept the report. That doesn't commit you to anything, but it just says we've received it and we accept it. From that day, you do have 5 years. And you can go in as many times as you want, but like Jason said, to close out one or be almost closed out before they'll let you put a new one in. So you do want to think about what's the low hanging fruit, what can we do relatively quick, and then we can put another grant application in. But each time you can get, and that they're not awarding the maximum, they used to award maximum, you can get up to $200,000. That's the max on these grants. Now, I will tell you, the demand on them has become, there's an over demand for it. So you may get 100,000. But the point is that, you want to be very strategic about what you can accomplish, how quickly you can accomplish it. And you do have to have generally, was this a 10% match?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do, usually you'll have to have it. Then you have to actually show financial hardship to get the 10%.
And we have no problems with it. We just have to remember again, like cameras and stuff is low hanging fruit. That's stuff that doesn't take a lot of staff. But working on the comprehensive plan,
Yeah, that's a
long-term project with staff requirements. So, you don't wanna do the comprehensive plan and at the same time do stormwater management at the same time trying to figure out the police. So we're gonna have to order these in a number because these aren't like the grants, a lot of the road paving grants we get and stuff like that Matt's able to do. These are grants that are gonna be pushed along to the administration. And so we have to think about that very carefully.
We can help you with scopes and budgets.
Yeah,
So that, it's not a hardship for you to get into a second phase.
yeah.
And next month, you guys will be coming to help with some of that. That's what I saw on the schedule that I dug out from January.
For sure, yes, yep, we'll be back in October, and, you've been talking with Stephanie ahead of time to start thinking about, grouping some of these, ballparking these, but you all should be thinking about that as well, so we can get back to head start as to where you all want to go.
So like Parks and Rec, some of that we don't need to be worrying about at this point. We have a planning grant for Parks and Rec. We have $120,000 we just gave out to Parks and Rec. So maybe Parks and Rec gets pushed, to the next steps.
But I think, oh, I'm sorry.
I would appreciate, I think as a staff, I think as the police officers and everybody, we would appreciate more security for the building. More security, we live in literally a glass house. And looking at what that looks like, that kind of stuff, that's low hanging fruit.
And step 5, so the last delivery, like Jason said, step 5 and 6 basically helps with it. Prioritizing like what rises to the top and also kind of identifies what we think can be funded. And some of it is just like training, that's on you, certain things are gonna be yours. But like, let's just say you wanna update police software, but also policies and procedures, because that's a big deal. And that can keep you out of trouble, liability wise and otherwise. That's something that you might wanna have an expert committee. You may not, most small departments don't have the time or expertise to actually do the policy procedures. It's pretty interesting. So I think, you have to be kind of thoughtful. Yeah, technology is good and it's, easy to do. Other things maybe just are more important.
And some other things that they pointed out to us that we're already working on that we'll be discussing is bringing in an HR consultant. We're already there and that's already budgeted for next year, looking at that kind of stuff. So there's some stuff we can say, we're working on this, so can you help us work on these procedures and stuff like that?
So if I'm understanding correctly, one of the advantages to working with you guys with getting grants for things that we might already be thinking about is that we can get it through you guys and pay only a 10% match instead of just going on our own to wherever. Is that accurate?
It's not us, DCED,
Yeah.
but DCED.
Yeah,
That's why it's important to actually have George here next month,
okay,
because he can be familiar with what you're doing.
yeah.
And what you're interested in.
So like with the HR, maybe there's a grant through DCED to get to pay that. Is
So
that,
I have seen communities make a argument for a position or a contracted service. So if that rises to the top and you can kind of, provide, justifications
I just
for,
want. to make sure.
that it's something. But if you do it in advance of getting the grant, it's not reimbursed.
And then the thought process is though, by already having that completed, is there's other things we can put up to the top.
Like once, if you bring an HR person on your staff, maybe you need an employee manual, maybe that's the thing that, the stamp grant pays for, I don't know, those are the kinds of
Yeah,
strategic focus thinking that we have to do.
Right. so one question about the council size. Not that I'm necessarily totally in favor of changing it, but I just wanted to know. I thought I heard when I first heard about this new act or law or whatever. That there's quite a process that you can't just vote one day and say, okay, we're gonna change from 7 to 5.
It's a
You have to
referendum.
Do a
You have to-
lot of
You
stuff
have to put it on the ballot.
on the ballot.
It has to go up for a vote. The question would be, do you want to reduce the size of Congress? And anybody who's currently on council gets to work, they get to fulfill their term. They don't have to do it. And the reason that General Assembly came up with this is they did a survey and there were literally hundreds of council seats that were open because they couldn't be filled. And the borough code basically says you have to have 7 council members. It doesn't give you really an option. No, are you under 3,000?
Yes,
Okay, so under 3,000, you could go, like Jason said, down to 5 or 3 because of your population. But what they found across the Commonwealth was there were literally hundreds of seats open. And that's why they tried to make it easier for people to reduce the size of the boards. And the other thing they found is that 5 is actually probably the best number for flexibility, for being able to maintain a full council, for being able to move and advance, items, that 5 is actually a good number, so.
But it's a process.
It is,
So it's not a simple thing
no,
to do.
it's not like you can pass an ordinance and.
Right, okay, I just wanted to clarify, thank you.
Any other questions?
Guess we'll see you in October.
I have a question, actually, sorry. What do you suggest, generally speaking, in terms of being best prepared for when you come back? Like, would you like have us all rank all of these, have some sort of survey where we do that, have a chat? Like, what would set us up most for success for our next discussion?
There's 80 of these, so if you wouldn't rank them, I mean, that would definitely be the best. Even if you wanted to rank the top 20, or something like that, that would be very helpful and kind of help us guide, where does this start to head for you? So, but yes, if you would come back with some top priorities for you, we get 20 might even be tough, but if you look through the, all of them, if certain ones jumped out at you and said, yeah, this is my priority, that would be very helpful.
I'll take all 81. Put them in a survey and you guys can rank them.
Well, and Jason actually has, I think you have one page here where he's pointed out some sort of high level priorities.
Yeah.
Around, obviously the sustainable and diversified revenue base, can't do anything unless you bring it in the revenue. And, I guess you've decided the direction.
Yeah, so maybe have direction on police services already, so that might change what that looks like. Code enforcement and trying to, get ahead of blight. Those are some of the things that keep your property base up, keep your tax base up. And then the last one that, the big picture that we recommended was about developing that capital plan, which I know that you kind of have
Just starting.
a short version of that, really, stretching that out would be, a good direction for the council. But again, that's a big picture item for you all to think about. And again, that would be one of the ones that you may come back and say, yes, that's going to be a priority for us. So, what you might want us to do with it.
How hard and how long does it take to develop what you're talking about here? A 5-year capital improvement?
So that would be, if you all would prioritize that, that would be something that you could, as part of the grant, you would put, someone could submit a proposal for you to help you develop that long-term plan. So this would then turn into working with Stephanie, working with you all, as far as your project list, your engineer.
I guess what comes first, the comp plan or?
Yeah, they're kind of different perspectives because the capital improvement plan is more sort of an internal organization plan, and it focuses on obviously capital projects and capital equipment. Your comp plan is more outlooking, it looks out into the community and is not really focused on your actual organization. What we do is actually focus on the organization. And we've done the capital improvement plans as part of a phase 2 for communities. And basically, like Jason said, it's working with the department heads, working with the engineer, working with the manager, and really forcing them to sit down and identify over the next 5 years. And I know that most department heads are not real comfortable with that. So you kind of actually have to sit with them and say, okay, what are the projects? Do we need a salt shed? Are we gonna need, trucks? How are we gonna, structure that? I mean, I don't know how much you support your volunteer fire company, but sometimes I see, fire equipment and fire vehicles in those things. So it's basically can be done, I would say, in 3 or 4 months. I think it's a relatively short engagement, but it's kind of intense because you really have to
be on site and talk to everyone, really work through. And then you have an evaluation process and then you prioritize, you have usually a committee with the manager prioritizes it all. And then you end up with a plan that you can update every single year. Once you get it done, it's not that hard to update, because every year, that year becomes your
Yeah.
actual operating
So
budget, and then you bring on a new year.
3 or 4 months is the actual time it would take to do it, but not including the time before that to find who we would get to help us. And the time afterwards for the evaluation, so it sounds like it could be 6, 7 months altogether.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when we're brought on to do it, we usually can do it within 3 or 4 months. The whole thing, and you'll have it. A complete, it's a document, it's not a big document, but it's a document, it explains what it is.
Thank you.
I have a question. It seems like what you said is, this is different than a comprehensive plan. But it also seems like some areas of this plan would overlap a comprehensive plan. What happens if the plans contradict themselves in those areas?
Yeah, and they shouldn't, right?
I shouldn't.
They
Yeah,
should complement, they should really complement.
so, some areas where, where.
I can see.
Yeah, well, that might happen.
It's contradiction.
Yeah, like one of the recommendations I had in here was about the Arch Street building, your old, I don't know if that was your old borough building or public works building. Street department.
Ambulance. would
Yeah,
be for a
so
while.
there's a lot of things in there, leaf collection, I don't know, in there, I don't remember, but there was, the comprehensive plan may say that, when it's looking at a structure like that, 'cause I even called that out in here that, you probably need to do a space analysis on that to determine what that looks like. The comp plan may say, hey, that's a great building to use for restrooms for the parks, maybe you all say no in the comp plan, maybe we wanna think about using that for overflow public works storage or something, when those types of things happen, there should be some consensus as to how do you actually wanna proceed, because there's grants out there that could, get you in one direction or the other, like if you are thinking about putting bathrooms there, the DCNR would love to look at something like that, whereas, that might not qualify for a grant if you were gonna just make it a public works.
That's what I worry about with the multimodals, is that
Yeah, there's a lot of.
we would be
Contradictory
contradicting each
areas.
other until.
That's my concern.
Sure.
And we're currently working on a comprehensive plan, and it could,
Currently working on the second multimodal.
yes. So, and that's just my concern, Lou.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think this kind of goes back full circle to when we started about the amount of work that's on your manager. Like there's a lot of coordination, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of execution on what you all come up with there. Maybe that's part of that discussion as to how do you go about implementing this? Do you need to even bring an implementer in that kind of help with some of this kind of stuff? So that can all be part of our discussion that we have, in October. So things to be thinking about. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good, very much. You all the info.
Yes, you got it.
Appreciate it. See you next month. At this time, we have comments from the public. Please approach the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yeah, hi, Kurt, can I get that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Kurt Sperling, Bridget, 420 Bridget. On a more positive note, well, more positive than the last couple of times I've been here, but, with regards to the speeding, the very, minor but effective things that everybody has done has worked for the most part. Obviously it's not perfect. I don't think any stop sign would be perfect. I don't expect it would be, but a far cry from where it was. Really, it is better. I just have 2 suggestions if we could. Moving the speed limit signs, and I know you might be thinking like, what the heck is the speed limit sign gonna do? I think the difference is coming from that, and it's nobody's fault, that street was well abandoned for so long. You know, and you guys don't know to do anything if nobody's coming to a council meeting saying anything, so it's nobody's fault. I think the biggest difference is people driving on that street now saying like, hold on, wait a minute. You know, they got pavement markings down, they got, you know, speed limit sign, they got lights on the stop sign. It's making a difference, but the two suggestions, you know, if we just move, like, shuffle the speed limit signs around, you know, put them to where. There's one, and I don't know if anybody drives in that street, but like, the trees hang down low.
They didn't cut those trees?
Huh?
They didn't cut those trees?
No, yeah, they're still
Are
there.
you talking about
So, yeah, no, coming down
Ridge.
Ridge,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
coming down Ridge, yeah, it's pretty much wide open, but. Selden, they kind of overhang, and the one speed limit sign is, I mean, you can't really see it, it's too good here, but,
Are you talking about where, on the,
Like,
on the right, as you're going up the
No.
hill, where on the. where the
So if you're
pictures
coming
are?
off of the boulevard, you know, you pass the cannon and you go to that stop sign and then you can make a right up onto High Street. You go through that stop sign on Selden, it's right there, like, right on the left hand side.
Okay, like by the railroad track.
Yeah.
I'll have them look. Yeah.
Okay, yep, that, and then if maybe we could, another pavement marking, like, you know, slow or, you know, the speed limit, painted on the ground, if we could do that in a couple places, I mean, like I said. They've been very simple but effective, you know, I wanna stand up here and tell you, you know, we still need the speed bump, I know I'm not gonna get it, Stephanie, I get it.
Not yet.
It's a big improvement, I appreciate everybody, yeah, if you guys could just maybe look into, you know, shuffling signs around. Doing more pavement markings, you know, I think, the turnaround will be great, like I said, I think people are driving on that street thinking like, okay, they're kind of. Doing some things here, it's looking, yeah, it's looking good, so, yeah, thank you, I appreciate it, and, yeah, I'll be back next month.
I will send the boys out, tomorrow, I'll actually send the police out tomorrow to look where the slow sign should go, and then I will send DPW out to paint them.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name's Bernadette TP 518 South Avenue. I appreciate the umbrella of the council meeting, these parents, our school. Dan has been there almost 16 years and I have been there 7 years. I have physically asked these parents to please not block our driveway. I have been told it's not my driveway. They're not blocking a driveway. They're not parked in a driveway. So after the council meeting, the officers came out. 2 of the officers did not get out of their vehicles. They sat there while people parked in other driveways. I have pictures of officers and people blocking the driveway. They park in the parking spaces behind the apartment buildings on First. I can tell you names of some of these people. I can tell you who some of the other ones are. Mrs. Gurley lives below us. There was a woman backed into her parking place. So I was cutting her grass. I asked her, "Do you live here?" She said, "No, I park here. I've been parking here for 3 years and I'm gonna continue to park here." I'm like, "Well, you're in their driveway." "No, I'm not." I then called the police, Jerry came down. I don't know if she moved that day or not. A couple of the other people moved, there's no tickets being wrote, there's been one officer who came, who just left. Wrote a ticket to somebody for blocking the alley with the rear end of their car. This is what we deal with, like, we have a camper, we can't get out, Friday is a nightmare. To think about going camping, we either have to leave work early, get there before school lets out and pull out by 2 o'clock. Or forget it. We park our camper in the neighbor's driveway, we have permission. They block our driveway, they block their driveway, they park in their parking down below, they park behind the apartment buildings park. I called the school has told me it's not their problem, it's the police's problem. Even when the chief was with us and was there every day, it happened. So Monday and Tuesday after council, after Dan brought it up. Nobody parked there. Last week, Monday this week, nobody parked there. There were 2 people blocking the driveway today. I'm leaving work early every day. To come home to see who's blocking our drive. Because I should have to do this. I have pictures of the officer, like I said, there's one sitting diagonal between us and Maple. and there's cars blocking. And there's one sitting at the corner, 2 different officers, nothing was done. I also heard a rumor that they park there and the other officer just tells them to move their cars. They're not getting any, there's no penalty to these parents.
I will give, Officer, Franco's, I will call him again in the morning. I did put a memo out on September 11th, all officers to work 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. Are to monitor vehicle traffic, residents, driveways are being blocked and parking on crosswalks at Vernon School at the start of school and when students are being dropped off in the morning and at the end of the school day. Borough Council and Mayor has received numerous complaints of vehicle code violations of driving too fast through school zones, blocking of resident driveways and parking on crosswalks, also complaints of speeding through the business district and red lights, but they were told I will, and I apologize.
No, I appreciate you guys doing.
I apologize what you're going through, but I will make another phone call. in the
They
morning.
need to start citing these people.
They do.
Yes, well,
That's
yeah.
And when the gas company was working, which I know was an issue,
right,
the parents were blowing past the flaggers. I was watching them get in the car in the mornings, and the lady's yelling at them, she's like, you're gonna kill somebody. And they're like, well, I gotta take my kid to school, literally was the answer you get from these parents. They're entitled, I don't know what it
It's
is.
not an
they
excuse to
just-
break the law when you have to take your kid to school.
It's a brand.
Yeah,
You still can't break the law.
I don't. Who drives their kids?
Everybody.
Square mile.
The problem is if you're up there and it's no excuse for what's happening to you guys, what's happening is there's nowhere to go. They are like,
No, because the First Street, when I was born,
yes, I mean, your cars are everywhere. I'm like, what the
they're
hell?
parking on First Street in front of the school.
And they're just,
They're blocking driveways. I have pictures of 2 of them doing it today when I left.
They go
My
stand there and
child
stand
out.
and BS.
they stand there, yeah.
They do. They get there anywhere from 2:30 on. Dan is a first responder, as you all know. I'm a funeral director. We both 24/7, 365. When I need to go to work, I need to get out of my driveway. When I have a screaming child, when we first had her, she was a month old. We both came, or she was 6 weeks old. We both came home. Both the driveway, he was parking his car in and our driveway were blocked. She's bawling her eyes out. We can't even get into our own house. We can't, the bad part is boroughs, towns, their code states that we can't have a car to. Unless it's physically in my driveway. So for us, I mean,
I apologize for that. I will make sure that there's gonna be zero tolerance. I will
appreciate
talk to the acting chief tomorrow and, I will explain to him
I
once
appreciate it.
again.
We really do. It's just like.
All right.
it's not-
So today it happened. I want to write the exact day, so I have them.
Yesterday, I believe it did. I have pictures. I mean, literally, Monday it didn't happen this week. Every other day it happened. Last week was just Monday and Tuesday. We had nobody blocking our driveway. I actually, obviously, was closed. Our house kids weren't there because there weren't a lot of parents. But they park in front of our driveways when First Street is open. They park in front of our driveways when there's parking behind us, across from us. They park in the yellow. I'm sure they're blocking the fire hydrant down at the school. I mean, there's just. with
They
these-
just need to set an example.
They do, and that's the problem.
I
is
will
that-
text him tonight to have him call me when he comes on at 8 o'clock
I
tomorrow.
appreciate it.
Bernadette, did you send the photos to us?
Thank you, Bernadette. Anybody else? Don't see any virtual hands.
Can I just make a suggestion in regard to that? It seems like it's more. I mean, it's definitely a borough issue here, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. But it's also a school district problem, and I think the principal needs to be notified.
They have.
And nothing's been.
They said it's the borough's problem.
Yep.
I talked to the officer this morning. We actually went over this and he said, I said, call him, have a meeting with the principal. And he said, I did. And she says, that's up to the police to do the traffic control there. And at least a letter should be sent out stating, the borough is going to start tagging you.
Yeah, send a letter home with the kids.
And perhaps if we're not getting enough, response from the principal, or maybe we need to take it higher up. You know.
I think what we need to do is have
superintendent.
Stephanie form a letter to the.
The school should definitely make an announcement
Yeah.
that there's a problem going on,
Yeah,
to at least notify the parents that they're aware of it.
Maybe if they work together, it'll get accomplished.
Yeah,
I will send it to the superintendent,
Yeah.
and to the transportation director.
Yeah. They've been dealing with it too long.
Who's the transportation?
I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I'm not sure. I don't see no virtual hands, nobody else. Okay, we'll go to the comments advisory boards. I just want to say we had an exec session prior to this meeting on personnel. The other thing I want to bring up, we have this list of committees and responsibilities and everything, guys. It's been put on the back burner for too long, and I'm gonna send this out to you in email, go over it and see where we at, what our priorities are for every committee. Trish, you wanna add to it?
As we all know, we came up with community committees this year and we distributed some information initially, but as we all know, as we go through the course of the year, things come up and things evolve and things change, and we thought we would go through some of the priorities we talked about. But then we also thought with the stamp presentation, that may all change as well. So I think we all kind of have some homework within the next month, considering the stamp recommendations, how that fits in with your committees. So as you're going through things, if you can think about how they would apply, and this document is meant to be a working document. It's not meant to be a directive from any one council member. So if you want to add things from stamp or otherwise, we could welcome that discussion to continue to move things forward.
I like Stamp's super committee recommendation. I kind of brought that up last year about maybe some committees progressing everything into a bigger group.
I think when we come up with the committee, Vince, if I'm not mistaken, we felt that we wanted everybody to have a committee, everybody to be involved. And maybe it is time to change a little.
I haven't heard of it until
Yeah.
today.
well, that also encourages more of the public to get involved too. We have a lot of experts out there on things like, especially on construction. You know, you have people that, you know, you might have contractors that might want to get involved in stuff that are experts, engineers, or, you know.
From my understanding, it seemed like super committee would just be another workshop.
It would be the workshop meeting.
So then we wouldn't have 77 meetings
Right,
a month.
Right,
right.
Where nothing gets done.
Your work-
Instead, we'd have one workshop meeting where we actually workshop something.
Right,
Your workshop meeting would essentially be built around the fact that you discuss everything that's gonna go to vote in your business meeting.
Yeah.
And pull away. I mean,
That's literally how a workshop meeting is supposed to.
it's, yeah, our workshop meetings are nowhere close to how they're supposed to
Correct.
work in our committees. So there's certain committees you have to have. But there's certain committees you don't have to have. You can probably do together, but
let's look into it, see what everybody's thoughts
I'll
are,
pull from other places too.
see what we can do.
Some can even be combined, right, Stephanie?
There, some can just be gotten rid of.
So I'll send this email out. I don't know how to do it on this.
I'll do it if you remind me.
I already did it.
You already did it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next up would be the mayor, Mr. Recupero.
Yes, I'll make this quick. I've received a letter from Officer Steve Saranovich on 9/6. I met with him, telling me that he is resigning from the Borough Police Department, and I'd like to read a letter. Dear Verona Borough Police Department, I am writing this letter to formally announce my resignations from my position as a police officer at the Borough of Verona Police Department, effective immediately. I have thoroughly considered and decided and believe it's in my best interest to pursue a new career opportunities. I want to express my sincere gratitude to the Verona Police Department for the invaluable experience and knowledge that I've gained throughout the 23 years of service that he's been here. The department has provided me with an excellent platform to grow both professionally and personally, and I will forever cherish the memories that I have made here. Kindly accept my resignation and extend my gratitude to the entire department for their support and camaraderie. It has been an honor serving alongside such dedicated professionals, and I wish the department's continued success in upholding justice and protecting the community. So
I need that letter.
I need a copy of it. He's off to better and bigger things right now.
So all his equipment or whatever.
Yes, everything's
Stuff
turned in. Yes, he didn't have much. Most of it was his own. He didn't have much. And real two quick things that I had it on.
I need to have a copy of that because I need to make sure, and it's been since September 6th. I knew nothing of this except for the fact that somebody randomly told me. So we have to have that in our file.
I sent a memo out the next day, like I said I was going to.
But I need a copy of the letter to put with paychecks.
Okay, yes,
Do
we
we
do need a motion.
Do we motion that tonight or?
We don't need a motion. He resigned.
Okay.
I
I
don't
have
need a motion.
No, he resigned. You're not firing him. He resigned.
to accept his resignation.
Usually we do make.
Yeah.
A motion for resignation.
You have to accept his resignation.
No, I do not need acceptance of his resignation. He's an employee of an at-will state. He resigned. If he's not on a council committee, he's
Okay.
an employee.
Tonight, we won't do it. If we have to, we'll do it at the business meeting. We talk to Craig, we'll go from there.
I have two real quick things, add-ons, Matt, our engineer called me today. Duquesne Light did fix the crosswalk light at ARB and South Avenue. They had the pole blocking it, so they did move it for safety. And, there's a block, I'm met with, Obi and, Jeff Morford. And I asked them to have a meeting. We're gonna have a meeting on October 7th at 7 PM at the Borough Building on Block Watch. There's some questions that have been brought up, so we're gonna invite the people in so they know exactly what the Block Watch is all about. The acting chief will be there and the fire chief will also be there. And one of the biggest things is the 911 issue where people still insist that they can't call 911. So we're gonna kind of clarify that once again, because I already did at the community meeting. That's all I have at this time. 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Dave. Next up, Borough Manager Stephanie.
We got a bid from Peak Performance to complete the entire administrative roof with metal roofing. And replace siding on both sides of the DPW building. We received a check from the insurance for the wind damage of $22,000. The cost of the roof and its repairs is approximately $25,000. So it's not costing us much of anything. We will be putting the same metal color that's on the roof of the train depot. So there will be that will be metal.
Maybe pick maybe a little darker for the sides, so it doesn't look as dirty.
It's,
You know what I mean?
we already bidded it out at white.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and at this point, we can't change, yeah, because all of the soffits are white.
Yeah, that's true too, yeah.
The 2004 pumper, fire pumper needs lights repaired and replaced. The cost to do this, I just got the new bid, it's $20 more than the first bid, is about approximately $11,500.
$7,384.84.
Approximately $11,500. We have the money in the budget. Actually, the money will come from the fact that the payoff of the truck and the lower interest payments leaves us with $11,800 extra. So it basically balances itself out.
And the reason the lights, just to reiterate, there's some people that don't understand, lights are lights. Some of the lights on the truck are bad, and the company that the lights were bought from, they're out of business. We can't get replacement parts for them up there. So just to let everybody know, it's not that they just want new lights, it's because we can't get them replaced.
That was my next question. They're not relatively,
It's old.
yeah,
So for,
but they still, I was wondering if they were.
Yeah.
If the company went out of business.
Well,
then-
and it's my understanding too that they're replacing all the lights.
Yes,
Yes.
Because as long as they have to pay for someone to dig in and around the dashboard and do all that stuff, it might as well replace them all than to have other lights break in 6 months and then you have to do it again.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, update, we will have a finance meeting on Monday. If I don't have your wish list items by then, there are no wish list items. So Monday. Please note, this budget is extraordinarily tight. Extraordinarily tight. Because of the fact that on October 22nd, we will be coming back to do the stamp project, we need to pick a date in the first week of November to have a budget meeting. I don't wanna wait until like we normally do. My hope would be that we could do something as early as October 29th, but no later than November 7th.
Why don't we do it November 4th, Monday before election day?
I will not be there.
Okay, then, let's do it November 6th.
November 6th is fine with me.
First Wednesday, is there any other meetings going on?
If there are,
There are, we probably work those here.
and I would, 6 o'clock,
Isn't that the Lower Valley Athletic Foundations?
That's
What?
Wednesday.
First Monday of the month,
Okay.
it's the same day as the community meeting, but
Let's tentatively set it up for November 6th, and if something major's on the
November,
schedule.
November 6th at 6 P.M.
Okay,
All right,
What's the thing about you were saying about the fourth?
I'm out of town on the 4th.
No, he was saying something about, there was another meeting happening on November 4th.
I don't,
it's the first Monday of the month, and then we.
Yeah, but you were saying there was some other community meeting happening.
No, the community, Odie and Jeff's,
it's the 7th.
That's October
7th.
7th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I was
the-
talking to the mayor.
Yeah.
Also, the Lower Valley Athletic Foundation's meeting.
The Monday, just.
Everybody keeps this. jumping in on our
Oh, in
meeting day.
October, on
October 7th is Lower Valley
Oh,
Athletics
okay.
meeting, and then November 4th will be Lower Valley Athletic
Right.
Foundation's meeting also.
And just so you know, November 4th, you cannot have a meeting in here because it will be the night before elections. Other rules that we will be enforcing is no council member will be allowed in the council administration building offices the day of elections. Period, end of sentence. We're actually gonna change the codes for the day.
Why is that?
Because it's election day, we're gonna have one person in here, one staff person, we don't want her to have to deal with a lot of stuff. So we are literally just gonna lock, there's no reason that anybody would need to be in the administration offices that
I'm
day.
sure you can just ask us and we won't come.
Well, we're gonna do, we're doing it because it's a very well-known code. We wanna stop everybody. It's not just you guys, it's everybody, because it goes right out to here. That's the problem. Banner community, Teresa and I will be working on the banner community. It's due in mid-November. You don't need to worry, it's all done online this year. Nope, we got it. I will be out of the office October 7th through October 11th. I will not be at the business meeting and I will not have my work phone. I will take my computer to do payroll and that is all I will do that week. Unless something horrible happens and you need to reach me on my personal phone. I plan to celebrate my family vacation.
very good.
Okay, you're going out of town October 7th to the 11th. You said you were gonna be out of town in the first week of November.
I am
So,
going to see my father on November 4th and 5th, if it's anybody's business.
It's nobody's business.
no, I just wanna make sure that we weren't mixing up months.
So I need to go home. So,
Steph,
yeah, I'm good.
thank you. Mayor, I have a question for you I wanted to bring up earlier. What's up with our emergency management coordinator situation?
He's already set up.
Cause I had heard that he didn't get info or,
He didn't. I had set him up with, the number that I had. 'Cause I was getting all the information also.
I don't have anything from him. I've not heard from him in 3 months.
He was actually waiting for you to call back, because I had texted you on that, let's get moving on that. He needs to be, with the county.
We resent all the information we sent to the county the first time.
Well, they didn't send it back then, but he got in touch with them. The names are all changed. The county should be sending you something.
okay. Thanks, Dave. Next up, committee discussion items, parks and property, Mr. Flota.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Next up, community relations, Mrs. Provenza.
President Ray, I apologize, I forgot to mark down the date when our next meeting is. I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you.
Next up, finance committee, Mr. Long. Next up, public safety, Mrs. Dr. Carpenter.
Thanks. I had a public safety meeting last week on Tuesday. We talked about a lot of things. One of the things that we discussed was, working on the handicap parking policy. And, where we kind of got stuck was, do we need to have a fee for a handicap parking sign? Like a minimal fee, like how much does an actual handicap parking sign cost? The pole, maybe just a one-time fee for the first time that someone gets a handicap spot. So I wanted to bring that up here tonight. The people could weigh in their opinion, what they think about that, or just to keep it without a fee.
And please remember that would be an ordinance change.
I don't like having a fee because I feel like that presents a barrier to people who already have existing barriers, and also it's an additional thing for us to manage. Which is not a huge fee anyway, we get so few requests.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm for a fee or not. I mean, like Trish said, these people have enough issues. Some of them, and it's a sign. I mean,
I think right now between Jerry and I, we created a great forum. We know where every spot is. We're going to write letters to have people send back to make sure that those
they're legit still.
still legit. We may have to come up with something, looking at like blocks, if blocks become issues. Meaning that if
Too many in one block.
want them, what does that look
Yeah.
like?
Well, if they got a legitimate doctor's
But
excuse.
the problem is, the law says you can only make, you can do that, but you can't. You can make accommodations that don't affect that don't affect the people around them. So basically, if there's one block and there's 5 people with handicapped spots. And there's not enough spots then for the people who actually live on that block to park, then what happens?
Well, people gotta realize too, handicap spots are for,
Anybody.
they're not just for that house.
Right, and what we're looking at and what Jerry and I are trying to figure out is what says, how many per block. So that you can say, okay, we currently have 4 there.
Is there a law on that or?
There is
ordinance or-
laws that have been written, ordinances that have been written based off of, and we're gonna be working with them,
Okay.
looking at that.
Okay,
They have some sort of strange like mathematical formulas on
Yeah,
how
I
they
mean,
dish
the one
those things out.
sample one that you gave us,
Yeah.
it was crazy how trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But Matt, between Matt and I, let's just looking at figuring that, the problem is you don't wanna be like on North Avenue. I think there's one block of one street that has like 6.
Yeah.
So it becomes a problem of And trust me, you know me, my mom was in a wheelchair, I'm all about handicap parking, but it's also. The poor people who live there also need to have a place to park, really, what we.
Right.
Well, it's, yeah, I'm thinking, like, you have a house, it's a certain width. And if the handicap spot is in front of the house of the person who's requesting it, it's that same width, it's not taking up another space.
But it is taking up a space that now becomes legitimately, if you park there and you don't have a tag, you're gonna get a ticket.
But
That's the law.
Yeah, but what we're trying to
across the
figure.
street or up the street a couple
Well,
houses or
again,
something.
we're not looking at like one house on one block, we're looking like if there's like 5 houses on one block, how do we?
Well, you are looking into it, so he's come up back with something and let us know.
Yeah, we're not like trying to be, we're just trying to make sure that people have places to park.
Understandable, right?
Oh, no, I have these terrible meetings.
Are we looking at expiration dates?
So they
Yeah.
agreed on 2 years, then
Yeah.
it has to be reevaluated by their doctor again.
We discussed, did we want 1 year or 2 years? It seemed like the consensus of the committee was 2 years.
Now we'll have to go into the ordinance.
But that's, again, I'm putting it out there now in a workshop to see if anybody has any other input about whether they want it to be 1 or 2 years or some other
I
amount.
think 1 year, you're gonna be. There's a lot of work and throw them signs every year.
Yeah, so
Again, we're,
people are good with 2 years.
our staffs work too, you know.
Maybe you could, do something like if, I don't know how you would word it, I'll be up to Craig, if you do not need the handicap parking spot anymore, you need to call the borough or else there'll be some type of, like fine or something.
That could be, we can put that on the application.
Because we have a lot in town, the people have died or something, but yet whoever's living there, they still use it with the placard on it.
Right.
Right.
And we're gonna be able to control that how?
At least it's in the ordinance. I mean,
and I'm just thinking, cause I'm thinking out loud, when my mom died, nobody came to my house and took away my placard.
but it'd be your responsibility to call and say,
Right.
Again, nobody
Well,
came and took away my placard, and people, I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but people are gonna use them, I mean, that's, yeah.
If it's gonna be hard to put a fee on stuff because people are, hard up.
Well,
It's gonna be harder to get a fee from someone that's.
but that comes with the reevaluation. But that comes with the reevaluation every couple of years, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm, every 2 years, yeah, but I mean, if somebody dies, I mean. there's a-
What are we talking about?
Yeah. So.
Okay, so we talked about this before, but a person receives a placard and it's actually good for 5 years.
Sure.
It depends.
Oh, okay, I believe
So
you.
do we wanna consider 5 years instead of 2 years? How often do we wanna go around and?
Some get temporary, some get 5 years, some get lifetimes.
Yeah, this 30-day one.
It's $5,000 in the state of Pennsylvania for 5 years.
That's the placard for the vehicle, but we're
No,
talking
that's
about
the
vehicle, we're
placard,
talking
no.
about the
That's-
spaces.
I get one for Brandon and it's permanent, but it's still the hanging thing.
Yeah.
It's not the license.
I'm just saying, do we wanna try to sync those two?
I don't know if we can,
I don't think we can.
I don't know how we.
because what if
keep track
somebody has
of
a
everything.
placard from 3 years ago, and they moved from Penn Hills to here, and they still have 2 years left on it.
I think we
can't
keep
really
it at
sync
2.
Like 2 years, we can send letters.
If that's not an initiative burden, I'm fine.
It's not, for us to send out a form letter is not a huge deal.
How many, in the list, how many were there in town?
I don't remember off the top of my head,
Like 50, 20?
Yeah. maybe 25, maybe.
Okay,
All of a sudden, we put a lot on Second Street, so maybe 27,
okay,
28.
okay. The other thing was on the form was, there's a place on the form to have, the make and model of the car. And I just wondered with these placards, does it matter? Because
It's just,
someone could
it's
get.
just more of an it's just more of an identifier, we're not gonna actually look at the make and model. Because the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, anybody can park there.
Right, exactly.
But keeping it on there, it's on Oakmont's, it's on everyone we looked at, asked, so, I mean.
I'm looking at this, do we have, okay, so they give us a picture of the placard, so we know the number that's on the placard.
We take a picture, that you get a little card that comes with it, we take a copy of that.
Okay, so anyway, we're making progress with,
But then again, it doesn't matter what the number is, because anybody can park there.
true,
It's
that's
just
true.
this family needs it.
And that, so we just know.
Right, no, I get it.
It's part of the obtaining the space indicator.
And they're told, every person who gets one is told specifically that this does not belong to you. This is anybody with a handicapped placard can park there.
Officer Dessel, do you have anything to add to this? You deal with it all the time over there, and every officer does. Any ideas? No?
It's a pain.
Yeah, thank you for your input.
State.
No, I understand, I do, I'm just teasing.
I know we had an issue at the fire hall one night, we had a function going on and somebody parked in a neighbor's across the street.
I
And
remember.
they parked in the neighbor's a handicap spot and they had a handicap ticket. That lady come over complaining to us, said, that's not right, that's my spot, and I think we called, was it you or was it Officer Frank or Sergeant Francos that come up and said, hey, this, it's a handicap spot, it's an open spot for a handicap.
He has a.
On your application, you may wanna put on there, it's open to the public with anyone that has a placard.
That's a good idea.
You said Upper North seems to have that problem all the time.
When they sign that, maybe then they agree to that term, that they understand.
I
that
mean,
it's not-
or they could do what Oakmont does, it's $25 a year and the spot belongs to you in front of your house.
There's that too.
Really?
Oh,
But you wanna do that?
Nope.
No.
Who hired them to do that?
Yeah, right.
How many people do we have to do that?
I don't wanna, I have to pick my son up at 10, so I just
Okay.
wanna make sure everybody knows that. It's like 9:05.
okay, well,
Nice.
Mr. Sperling already talked about the flashing lights and the lines and everything, so that's been taken care of. We're still looking into some other things that was brought up about having a child safety seat event. I think Lower Valley wants to do that.
We're working with Terry right now.
What?
They're working with Terry right now.
Okay, cool. Sergeant Francos brought up, in terms of like his wish list would be some money for some cameras at Riverbank Park and the public dock area.
And if you look, that's on the stamp thing, so anything that's kind of on the stamp thing is that's low hanging fruit.
Okay. I don't know specifically from public safety what to tell you about a wish list. Unless anybody here can think of what public safety would want to request, because it's.
I would request anything you want from the finance committee, because we're telling public this, there's some community groups too, write it down. It's the fairest, easiest, people have been writing, the mayor wrote down his wish list,
Yeah, but I can't think of anything.
but that's
Then I
not,
don't have none.
then you have none.
It's not like, hey, let me try to find.
Here's what I'm gonna
Spend
tell you.
money.
Want to make sure I'm not forgetting or.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you, wish list. And right now, again, the budget is extraordinarily tight. And when we're looking at where we're going to be spending money, we're gonna have to really look at what keeps the borough going versus what we wish we had.
Right.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure there wasn't something glaring that I was missing, unless the rest of my committee can think of anything. I'm not hearing anything. Okay, that's it for me, thanks.
Thanks, Nancy. Next up, Strategic Planning Committee, Trish Rizzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. My committee overlap with the planning commission meeting on Thursday, September 12th. We had a discussion with Stephanie Edwards from DCD regarding the MAP grant, the Municipal Assistance Program, which is the primary grant option for us to pursue our comprehensive plan. There's 2 application periods. We're going to proceed with that. It is tentatively a 50% match, and we would pursue that Marchish.
It would Marches unless, we can find something through DCED, which is not a 50% match.
Yeah, so that is interesting you said that, because the next item I want to mention, a couple people brought this to our attention, is the Main Street
And
matters.
we will be going to a trade, Teresa will be, because we will be busy, we'll be going to a training on that.
You mentioned, can you add this question to your list, which is, can we use Main Street matters to match for the map?
No,
You sure?
yes,
Is it
State.
planning?
it's state and state.
Can't do state.
Great.
Yeah, and Main Street Matters, is mostly looking at like facades and sidewalks and stuff like
It's
that.
the grant that Lawrenceville got, right?
It's sort of like that, but this is a new, they're increasing it.
Due November 15th, so this would be a great opportunity for us to do some other work.
Teresa's looking into, Teresa's gonna go to the to figure out what we can and can't apply for, because I will be busy that day.
That's great.
And then, we will talk to them.
Okay, cool. All right, that's all I wanted to bring.
That's it. Thank you. Easy peasy. Next up, Personnel Committee, Mr. Janellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we're running a little long here, but I just thought, we had a personnel committee meeting last week, and we had discussed, and Stephanie had joined us. We had discussed one of the aspects of the staff recommendation, actually, about the human resources consultant. And we had actually I kicked this around even before, you know, the stamp actually even reporting had even come out. So we have a proposal here for a consultant to help us out with the borough, some of the borough's needs with human resources, establishing, handbook and developing policies and people consulting. As you can see your handouts here. And this person is very familiar in the area here, Tracy Goals. Former borough council person from Oakmont. He's an attorney specializing in municipal human resources. She does, as you can see, labor negotiations, benefits, compensation, employee relations, workplace investigations. So I think, she would be a very good resource for us. And Stephanie, is there anything you want to add?
We looked at it this way, we understand that we could get a grant through students. But this is somebody we could have basically at our beck and call for a year, and if we still like it, another year. And look at other things for human, to use the stamp money fund. It's $12,000. It's somebody who is very familiar with local government, who is a doctorate in human resource, has a doctorate in human resources. And would give us the opportunity to get the things done that we don't have done, that I don't have the expertise in. So,
The only question I have is, I remember we got someone one other time. I'm not gonna say names,
oh no,
and that's a concern. 'Cause
yeah,
that person, all they did was take our money, I mean, this is just something new to me. I just found out about this just now.
Yeah, no, there's three things here. I understand what you're saying. We are not looking at hiring somebody to do press releases because people get arrested or whatever. We're looking at human resources. She is a doctor in human resources. This is what she does day in and day out. We have manufactured, we've seen the work that she has produced. This is not by any stretch of the imagination the same thing.
We are talking public relations.
You're talking, she was public relations and I never in a million years would have ever told you that was a good idea.
I'm not blaming that, I'm just saying.
I'm just,
I know
no,
it's
but I
not.
know what you're saying. I've investigated this very, very closely. I've looked at other places that do this. When you talk about starting to get into having lawyers coming in and stuff like that, it's money we don't have nor can we afford. This is somebody who's here in the area. She'll give us 10 hours a month.
So that's with her retainer, it's 10 hours, and then it's only 125 an hour additional.
But I don't ever think we'll use her more than,
Do
I
we
mean,
have
this
to
is
put it out
developing
for
a
bid?
sound.
no,
HR
we're not,
policy.
it's under the $25,000 threshold.
Would it be a good idea to interview just,
To explain herself, yeah.
we interview everybody.
If you guys wanna interview her, that's fine, I guess we looked at it and I will say how I said it to John, I looked at this is the person that I'm gonna have to work
Yeah.
with. This is not the person you guys are at, she's gonna be writing the stuff that I'm gonna be presenting to the council. If you feel that you need to meet her, I don't think she'd have any problems with that. This is one of those things where, Craig works for the board, Matt works for the board. The human resource consultant would actually be there in support of me.
So this $1,000 a month for 10 hours, 12 months, discount for 500. Ours will carry over per month and can be refunded at end of year.
Yeah.
So then the next one is an hourly rate. Our so much hourly billed for any human resource work performed. So that 1,000 a month is a retainer, and anytime we use her, it's gonna be $100.
$1,000 is, you get 10 hours a month on that $1,000.
Well, that's not what I'm reading.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's 10 hours a month on the.
It's 10 hours a month on retainer.
But it says in the next thing hourly, $125.
That's the second option.
Oh, well, what about if she works more than 10 hours?
She would wait and balance it out again.
I think we need to bring her into that, and we have these questions.
Okay, I will have her come
That's
in
my opinion.
and have her meet with you guys.
What's everybody else think?
I agree.
But the other
Yeah, but
question,
We went over it in more detail in the personnel committee, so I really don't have that many questions. If any at all, but if you guys do,
Well, I'm a little confused on the pricing, to be honest with you.
no,
That's my question.
it's always a good thing.
Whatever you guys are comfortable with,
Yeah.
And I think another thing too is, what exactly are you gonna start us out with? How are you gonna do it? What are you gonna do? I understand what HR is, but what are you going to bring to the table?
Sure, handbooks.
But exactly.
But can we go back to something, and this happened this morning in a phone conversation I heard, and it's happening again. We as staff have no say. I understand the money issue. I get that, and I have no problems getting those answered. What I have problems with at this point is I feel like we're just babysitting a building. And we have no say over anything that happens. Like, we need to have human resource manuals. You guys need those, but I need those more because I'm the one at the end of the day who, if we get sued, it's my battle. That they're gonna come to you, but it's always, and it's beginning to feel like we're basically here to babysit. I basically heard somebody on the phone today basically say that nothing happens down here, basically, that we're worthless. And it's getting a little frustrating, like, it's really getting to the point.
Here's the thing, is we have to have performance evaluations for every borough employee, right? And in order to have a performance evaluation, you have to have an actual structure to that. There's no way, we have nothing on paper, nothing for anybody.
I want,
You know, and so then she can help us structure.
I agree, I understand that.
You know what I'm
My
saying?
question is, this is just brought up tonight, my question isn't what they do in the office, my question is the money.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you to approve this tonight, I'm not, that was never the mention.
If she can give me, if she can call me and tell me what her
I-
fee schedule is up, and I can
And I have
understand it.
no problems bringing her in to talk about that part, what I keep getting stuck on is. We have literally become, we are literally babysitters.
I disagree.
I do too. The board is they're the ones that make the decisions, say, that's a good idea, Stephanie, that's a good idea, officer, let's go with
And
it,
you
but we
also-
need to be informed of, things, that's my opinion.
But I-
Being informed and
What's that?
micromanaging.
And then, yeah,
I'm not micromanaging.
I'm not saying.
Times that this board
Nothing to do with it.
micromanages. The
Everybody.
office, we hired a manager. Her position is manager, she manages the
But
town.
doesn't the
We-
board have a right to?
We have a right to know, and we have a right to vote on the things that need to be voted on, but there are things that need to be done in the borough that we can find out after the fact. But you guys all think that you need to know every little thing that goes on in town, and we don't, because your head's gonna explode.
That's not what I'm saying, Tim.
No, I'm saying,
Getting a little off topic here.
no, because this is, I think the problem was, my theory had always been, we keep talking about, we have these committees. It went to the committee. So I understand Ray's point, and I can get that question answered for him. The money issue, I have no problems with. It's I need to know exactly what she's gonna produce. At what point? Well, she's an HR consultant and.
Right, I see I mean, it's written here what's being said, I
But,
get that.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. We've gotta say, here, Stephanie, that's your job, you work with her. This is what we would like, if we need anything.
Yeah.
We've all wanted handbooks.
yeah,
We-
so
We've been asking for handbooks since Rhoda was on here. Employee handbooks and stuff. It hasn't transpired yet. So I don't have a problem with bringing someone in. The only thing I'm saying is, this is the first I'm hearing it.
yeah, that, I guess, at the end of the day, what I was trying to say is, I understand bringing her, I understand asking.
Well, no, I mean, that's why we brought it to workshop. When we put it in the committee, we're bringing it to the board.
Something we agree with.
Yeah, so committee.
Yeah.
But what seems to keep happening.
I get that.
Yeah, what seems to keep coming back to us all the time is. We need to know exactly what they're going to produce, what it's going to look like, how it's gonna be. And I did. And it gets a little frustrating for all of us, and we heard it this morning, and we've heard it a couple of times in the past few weeks. So we're just trying to figure out what this is supposed to look like.
Well, I'd just like to chime in and say, I think it's a wonderful idea. And I just wanna caution us, do we wanna do one and done, or do we need to put out an advertisement? Or is it because it's just a consultant, we can just take the first one that we come across?
Under the bid threshold.
Here's,
No, it's not about bidding, it's about, we're bringing someone in to work here, and do we need to compare her?
we can
to other
shop around and
viable,
potentially lose a candidate though. We could shop around and potentially lose a candidate though, like we did for a year with borough managers. When we were shopping around for borough managers, we couldn't find it because we were.
I'm sure this lady knows what she's doing.
Well, I'm just
I only
asking
raised the
about,
question
yeah,
about the money.
well, I'm just asking about best practices.
I think maybe we can bring Tracy in here. And perhaps we can just all speak with her. And maybe have her make a presentation and she can show us the kinds of things that she could provide, the services she could provide, and show us how we can take steps forward.
I think,
Into getting our human resources problems
yeah,
resolved,
definitely, and I think that the price is definitely very good.
It really is.
As long as we get that whole thing that you brought up straightened out, because I'm not clear now that you said that, what that means on the thing. But, I don't know what other HR people do, I would love to have her come here and do this. I'm just wondering if we, in the interest of best practices, do we not need to put it out there for other people who might also be interested in the consulting job to come, and then maybe they'll be cost twice as much, and we'll say, well, thank you, but no, thank you. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there for consideration.
Was there
Like I
a
said, we-
timeline to bring her on someone?
I would like to have somebody on, I'd like to put it in the budget.
Yes, so starting in January.
I mean,
As I'm looking at
There's
this,
a budget.
there's a few examples of what she does. And again, we just got this tonight.
I'm not,
So,
right, you're
I
not,
know,
you're misunderstanding, I understand what you're. It's,
it looks like she has a good history. I'm not, that's not my question at all. I mean, she has her stuff, what she's done here.
Me either, it's not my
Yeah.
question either.
My question was just,
I really like it. I
My
think
question-
Do due diligence.
what's that?
Do due
Due
diligence.
diligence on the money, that's all.
due diligence on the process.
and that
And
makes
if you-
sense, somebody's saying, we're gonna do due diligence on this, I get that, and that is not what my argument is, I think what the argument is everything comes down to. We looked at this because you guys told us there was an issue. I took it to personnel, I have no problems with the money issue, I have no problems with that. What I do have a problem with is, we know what we need.
Right.
If I have to spend the next 3 years of my life writing down everything line by line with little bullet points, then I'm just babysitting. And to be honest with you, some things happened today and are continuing to happen that make it feel like that's how this job, how this is becoming right now, that we are being kept as told to babysit. And we don't get to make any decisions, we don't get to do anything, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the entire council or it's getting to be a lot. And I guess what we're all trying to say is we have the best interest of the borough at heart, honest to God, every single one of us do. There is not one of us that want anything bad to happen. Please remember that, because right now it doesn't feel like that.
Well, again, if you can just find that out, you may not
I'll
bring her in.
bring her, no, you guys should meet her, if you haven't met Tracy, you have to meet Tracy.
I mean, I'm just,
Let's have her come in and maybe.
I'll have
the
her
next
come in
business meeting or something,
business
have her
meeting.
come in and she can make a small presentation or something.
No, we'll just bring her
What
to
do
the
you guys
next
think?
business meeting, it's fine, I have no. No, I have time, because the budget's not gonna be done.
sorry, I created such a.
Are you all
No,
okay
you
with
did
that?
it.
But I think putting it in the budget, we should put it in the budget regardless, if it's Tracy or for some unforeseen reason, somebody else, we still need it in the budget, for sure.
I agree.
I think
We
it's a
think that
fabulous
like I
idea,
said,
we need
brought
to do
brought
it.
that up how long ago, employees handbooks.
Yeah,
this and that.
and even if,
We have got it done.
even if Stamp does provide the grant money for, I mean, we can't rely on that, we don't even know if we're gonna get that or not. So we might as well just budget for it.
All right, anything else, John?
That's it.
Is everybody content with that?
Wishes.
Okay. Ordinary items? I need a motion to accept the minutes of June 11th, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Long, second by Dr. Carpenter. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Action items. Motion to approve the replacement of the administrative building roof in the DPW building society by Performance Engineering.
Make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Long,
Second.
second by Mr. Floda. Are there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
And just so you know,
Opposed?
Amish men in our building.
Passed. The next action item. I need a motion to approve repair and replacement of lights on a 2004 Toy fire engine by Tri-State Fire Service.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Long, second by Mr. Jamelis. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed. Next, I need a motion to approve the resolution acknowledging the presentation of the MMO worksheet for uniform
I'll
pension.
make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Carpenter, second by Mrs. Provenza. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. When I was writing the checks out the other day, signing it, the past borough managers on that?
Yeah, we tried to have her removed. We're not paying for her. We don't know why she's still on there.
Okay, I just
I
seen it
talked to her
on.
after I was with you,
Yeah,
and I asked her the same thing, what you did.
We cannot get her off. We've tried. We
We're not
have
paying
long emails. We don't pay anything towards her,
no,
so,
that's fine. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
yeah,
I just-
yeah. I don't know why they won't remove her. They just won't.
Are there any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passed. And the last motion I need is to approve the resolution for Act 600 reduction for police pension contribution.
Second.
Mr. Long, second by Mrs. Provenza. Are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Next up is announcements and information. We have Mrs. Provenza up first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, all. We'll start with newsletter. We're currently taking ads and articles for the winter edition, which is going to come in December, January, and February. Ads and articles are due on Friday, November 1st. And we do need them as soon as possible because of the holidays coming up. That really shortens the time to get it to the printer. For articles, Donald Wharf can be reached at 412-828-3607 or at veronanewsroom@gmail.com. And for ads, I can be reached at 412-828-7726. Chamber of Commerce, the next meeting will be on Tuesday, October 15th, here in the Borough Building. And discussion will be on upcoming holidays, Halloween and Jolly Jamboree. Twin Borough Ministries, the community dinner will be tomorrow evening at the Methodist Church from 4:30 until 6:30. Dinner will be prepared by Oakmont Methodist Church and hosted by the Verona Methodist Church. Historical Society, the next meeting will be on Thursday, October the 17th, 7 p.m. here in the Borough Building. And Melissa Marinario from the Heinz History Center will be the guest speaker, speaking on National Heritage Italian Month. And all are welcome, and there's never a charge for this, so do come and invite a friend. Alon, right now, they are busy wrapping up everything for the Erie Bayfront Conference, which is October 24th through the 27th. In closing, a couple of weeks ago, I organized a fundraiser for a young man here in our area. Lou Gehrig's disease, 2 small children and a wife. And there was a dire need for finances. So I organized the fundraiser. It went very well. It's quite successful. And the family of Mark Reed, this young man with the victim of Lou Gehrig's disease, sent out a great big thank you to all the Verona people that were there. They were very deeply touched by the outpouring help. And I too thank everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Setting that up, Sylvia.
Yeah, thank
You're
you.
very welcome. Very welcome. I saw a need and I just couldn't pass it by. Pulled at my heartstrings. Are there any questions or comments? If not, this concludes my review. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Next up would be Trish Rizak for a couple of announcements.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a reminder, this Friday, we have the Verona Borough pedestrian walk audit starting at 10 a.m. at Off the Rails, concluding approximately 12:30, unless you want to join us for lunch. In addition to our notable guests, including Senator Costa, Rep. McAndrew, and your esteemed council and business and residents. We also are excited to have Nick Chulis join us as well, along with Superintendent Neil English, Dr. Monroe, Principal Erner, and 9 high school civic students. So excited for all of you to join us.
Hey, we got Dr. Monroe and Dr.
You have a letter in your hand.
While we're walking and looking at cars up traffic, you know. Don't forget the following week is the National Week Without Driving, September 30th to October 5th.
And I'm going to bus stop every morning to find Trish.
I will be taking the bus.
Yeah,
right.
I'm doing all my non-driving on the walk.
How's those lawnmowers gonna get on the property?
I'm doing
Perhaps
the non, I'm
consider
doing the
driving
non-driving on the walk on Friday.
I'm going to the bus stop to check out Trish.
Next public meeting in Oakmont, Thursday, October 10th, 6 to 8 at the library, mark your calendars. We have 2 other announcements from Dr. Carpenter.
Yeah, this Saturday, the 28th, from 2 to 5 p.m. is the community picnic.
Oh, that's.
Free food and music by the Family Jewels, and the weather's looking good as compared to last year. So I hope everyone can make that. There'll be games for kids and a chili contest. Also, someone made me aware of Free Dentistry Day on October 11th from 9 to 1 at Dr. Gupta. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, we're
There's
on
a
it
flyer
down there.
outside of the building if you want to
Cool.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have Annette not tag the boulevard that day in South Avenue.
yeah.
We did that in the past.
Those who,
They get really busy over there.
for people who, you know, are in need of dental care and don't have the money to go, they should, it's first come, first serve, so show up early. 9 to 1, 9 to
Take your
1
chopper down and walk them.
on Friday, the 11th of October. Thank you.
Any other announcements? This time we have comments from the public. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. I see nothing, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Good boy.
Motion by Mr. Long, second by Mrs. Provenza. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. I want to thank everybody for coming and all their input and have safe travels home.